Not every real estate agent, every loan officer has a great mentor, but you can find that in other places too.
Yeah.
Like for example, if you have a single client or a single transaction under contract at the moment, you need to be spending 3-4 hours a day.
Tell your wife to pack up for 6 months, and that's what you're gonna have to do for the first 6 months. You're gonna have to live by yourself.
Putting yourself out there and doing it. And I mean, that's all real estate is.
So what can new agents do? What is it gonna take for an agent to be successful?
She did 4 pieces of business in her next 4 months.
You ready to go? Are we recording already? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I am here with Brian Rueda. He is an agent out in Sugarloaf, but you are a lot more than that. So Brian, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So I've been licensed for almost 3 years, but very soon into my real estate career, I started jumping more onto the admin side, learning a little bit more about just the back-end processes. And then eventually that led to me training other agents on the team that I was on, and eventually doing that same thing of onboarding and training at a broker's level. So been doing that for over a year now.
Yeah, I would say, because I run into it all the time where I'm talking to an agent. If it's a newer agent, I ask them like, hey, is anybody helping you? And I hear your name come up all the time. And I'm actually telling people, hey, you need to call Brian if you haven't already. So I would say you're definitely more of a leadership than anything, and you're a huge help, and you're a wealth of knowledge, which is partly why I wanted to bring you on.
I hope to be, If I'm not, I should not be leading people.
Yes.
Blind leading the blind.
Yeah, the blind leading the blind. That's what it is sometimes, though. But no, you're definitely a huge piece of value. And, what is the goal of today, right? My thought with this is, what can we bring for all agents, regardless of skill level? And I think you have a lot of good ideas. And, I've talked to you a couple times about it, and I've heard you teach other people as well. What would you like to get out of this today?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's really about understanding how we can actually provide value, and that's with, in my opinion, very tactical pieces of information, of knowledge, and things that you can take away and actually implement. Because we honestly hear it a lot in the real estate industry where we say you got to have your value proposition, you got to be valuable to your clients, you got to provide value, you got to always be reaching out to them, providing them value. But like, what does that actually mean? And so in our case, it's more of understanding what a real estate agent needs, giving them that piece of information, and hopefully they actually learn, they take something away from it, and they apply it, because that's what true learning is.
Yeah, and I do think at the end of the day, right, it's all about applying it. We can give you all the information you need, but you have to apply it. And I think it is about, so like the military does this thing where, they'll teach you how to do it, but then they're going to make you do it as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important piece to understand, is that you can hear the information all day, but if you're not actually going and applying it, you're not going to actually learn it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were in a class this morning where with the coaching group, and they were showing a lot, but until they actually walk through the process themselves, at least a mock process, they're not going to know what's actually happening.
You're right.
What's going on.
Mm-hmm. I do like, and just to brag a little bit about your market center, I do like how they have set it up. I've seen a lot of different PC programs, and they're doing this thing, and I don't have a full understanding of it because I'm, an outsider, but they're doing it step by step, and you have to complete certain things to move up to the next step as you progress. And I'm seeing experienced agents go through it. Cindy Torres, she's doing great, and she's in that process too.
She's killing it.
She's a monster.
She's doing so good.
She is really doing good. And when I first came to, side note about Cindy, but when I first came to Sugarloaf, I thought she was like a brand new agent, never done anything, and like within 2 weeks, Cindy she's awesome.
Yeah,
she's incredible.
That's what's really cool about her. She applies it. Whatever she hears, she applies. I remember she first joined our market center back in December, and she was like, well, what do I do? How do I let people know like that I'm in real estate? And I told her, hey, like get the Reach app, reach out to every single person in your contacts, and just send them something. Just remind them, hey, I am here, I'm a person, right? And she ended up sending like a little graphic that said like Merry Christmas a couple of days before the 24th. And she had like 900 contacts in her iPhone, and from those 900 she got 200 replies. Of those 200, she did 4 pieces of business in her next 4 months after having been inactive as an agent for the past 16 years.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because she used to be an agent prior.
Yeah.
Right? I remember.
But she didn't really do.
She didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
She didn't really.
Yeah, she wasn't like she was a killer agent years ago. No, she did had her license and just didn't really do anything.
Exactly.
But yeah, she is. I'm ever impressed by her, and she is a great example of someone who actually applies it. And I'll say one last piece about this too. So there's another agent. So I see agents. We're outside, right? So I get a lot of view of agents. I communicate with a lot of different agents. I get to see all different types, all different levels, and everything, right? So it is easy for us to pick out, this person. They're gonna kill it. They come in this office and you can tell quickly. And there's this agent who just joined the market center, and she is in everything. She's in absolutely everything. And she actually pulled me aside and asked me to speak with her and go over the loan progress. No one has ever asked me to do that. We actually sat and did a mock. No, we did a mock. No, she asked me to do like a mock pre-approval, like treat her like she was the buyer. And we ended up running out of time. We spent like an hour just going over it. But people like that, that's what it looks like to apply it and like really go out there and do it.
Yeah. And honestly, that surprises me, because I feel like everybody should ask you to, hey, walk me through this process, because I'm about to walk all of my personal sphere of influence. I'm walking all these strangers, people who are doing this as like this is the largest investment of their lives for the most part. And unless they're investors and they do this a lot, but for the most part, all their clients are working with their biggest assets, and they don't know what they're doing. And so it just surprised me that you've got one.
I know, and
do that.
I don't want to spend a bunch of time on the mortgage stuff, because that's not what this is. But I will say, so like, we never want to make you guys little loan officers or little lenders. That's not our job, or not your job. But I mean, I was really taken back when she asked me. I was like, that is so awesome. You want to sit here and go through this, because yes, you're not going to know all the ins and outs, but at least you'll know, and you can tell your clients what to expect. And she even asked, I want to know what you're going to be doing for my clients. Absolutely. Let's talk about it. She was checking my value to see that if she wanted to send me her clients. And I was like, this is awesome. So
yeah, people definitely need to do that more.
Yeah, I agree. But enough about lending. So what can new agents do? What do you think it takes? What are the steps? What is it going to take for an agent to be successful, a brand new agent?
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of where I've seen a lot of development these past like 2-3 years, is just understanding the timeline of a new agent, right? Because a lot of times people are just like, oh, go out there, find clients, and then we'll help you with the rest. But a lot of times that's just setting them up for failure. They either one, don't have the technical know-how, and they end up screwing somebody over, losing them earnest money, or just not representing them properly. And the second thing that happens is that they don't actually sell themselves, because they don't have enough conviction in their own abilities to represent their clients.
Confidence is key, right?
Exactly. Yeah, so they don't have that confidence to say, hey, let me help you because I know I can.
I think if, as an agent, I mean, obviously I understand a new agent is going to be nervous on their first deal. But you need to have you're going to have an easier time getting them to sign a BBA if you are confident that just because this is your first one, you can take them all the way to the end. Regardless of how it turns out, you're confident you can do that. And I think you're right, and I've seen this in a lot of other market centers, it is like lead generate, but it's like, okay, well, how do I fill out a contract? Like, how do I actually do my job?
Absolutely.
Things like that.
Yeah, and so basically that timeline is step one, setting up, right? So usually if you're starting from scratch, you just passed your exam, like now what? You want to find that brokerage. You want to tap into all of the resources that they have. Like for example, at Keller Williams, we offer like a professional Keller Williams branded email. We have our CRM system that we have built out end to end for the real estate transaction process. And so just making sure you're set up on all those systems, you've got those in place. So that's not the one reason that you're not doing it. Because as humans, we always want to find the easy way out. Our brains are wired to do that.
Yeah.
And so if we set it up to where it would be unreasonable for us to not move forward, then that's how we actually move forward. So that's kind of step one. It would be that setup. And then step two is actually learning the craft, right? It's understanding the contracts. At least read through them once. I mean, if you can't get in touch with your broker.
I think you should read it through a couple times.
Preferably, right? But some people don't even read it through once, or they stop at what is a property description, and they miss everything else. So you want to read through all of those particular contracts that you'll be using. And if you don't know what you'll be using, talk to your broker. Talk to anybody else in the market, and they're like, hey, I'm about to represent somebody. What are all the documents I need? And for the most part, I find that a lot of agents don't like to teach that because either they don't have the time or they don't know how to teach it, or something else that I've seen is they've spent so much time, they spent 5, 10, 20, 30 years in the industry learning it all, like on boots on the ground. They're doing it themselves. They learn the hard way, so they don't want to give somebody else the easy way, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's not about the easy way, right? I mean, you want to give people who are in your tutelage or whether they're on your team or your coach. I think it is important to give them that confidence, and confidence comes from knowing what you're doing. And when you sign up to join a brokerage, and obviously some people are interviewing, and if I were an agent, I would sign up with the brokerage that I felt I was going to get the most value, especially as a brand new agent.
Absolutely.
And if I'm signing up for that, it's what I'm going to expect. So I can see where some people, will bounce from brokerage to brokerage because they feel they're not getting that. And I think it's unfortunate because sometimes it just takes finding that right person. Like I have a great mentor, and I don't know what I would do without him. But if I didn't have that, not every loan officer gets an amazing mentor, right? Not every real estate agent gets an amazing mentor. So it can be difficult if that person is unwilling to teach you that.
For sure. And what's crazy is you don't necessarily, like you said, not every real estate agent, every loan officer has a great mentor, but you can find that in other places too.
Yeah.
Like for example, in my journey, I started as an agent, 6 months didn't do anything, joined a team, a couple of months didn't do anything. So I told them, I'm gonna work on your back end instead. Let me be an admin, just an extra pair of hands, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not selling myself well. You're spending all this money, this time on me and on working the leads that just isn't coming to fruition. You're losing money. Instead, let me work as an admin and learn the ropes a little bit more, and then I can come on and we can do sales and do all that kind of stuff. And I learned so much more in that time as an admin than the previous year combined.
Yeah.
Because I was in it, I was seeing other people do it. And that's probably something we'll touch on later in like how to actually learn things effectively and how to teach things effectively. But just seeing that process done, and I was a transaction coordinator for maybe a month, and in that span of a month, I worked on 8 separate transactions, start to finish.
Transaction coordinator is a good place to
it's a
learn
great
some
place to
stuff.
start. Yeah.
You're gonna work, because that's the reality is, right? Like as a transaction coordinator, you're gonna be working for different agents. You're gonna be doing deals all the time. Like that is your job. Whereas an agent, you might get a deal here, then you might get another deal in 6 months.
And then you forget, like, oh, well, how do I
I
fill
even
out these
do it?
contracts?
Yeah.
What's the process again? And so definitely, I feel like if you want to learn the transaction, talk to transaction coordinators.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to learn what it actually takes to be a real estate agent, become an admin for a team, for a high producing individual. Because again, you see what good looks like. And then once you see what that looks like, you know what to emulate. Otherwise, you're coming in blind and you're like, oh, well, I made 2 calls today. I did some lead generation,
something, yeah.
right? And that's all you do. So that's not actually enough, and people don't really understand that.
I like, Twee, Burchett, is that her last name?
Yeah.
She has stuck with me too. She, when she started, and I'll tell the story wrong, so I won't go into too much depth, but from what I understand, when she started, brand new agent, she like shadowed every person on the ALC or like every like high performing agent, and that's how she learned what to do. And obviously now she's like, she's an all-star.
She's killing it, and she's teaching other people, hey, this is what I've learned. And she's been in the industry just a little bit longer than I have, I think. Like,
really?
Maybe 4 years, something. But yeah,
she's a rock star.
She's a rock star. She kills it. She does this full time. And they just went on like a trip and took some time off, and then she could come back, and it was just, it's awesome to see how she pours back into the other agents.
She does. That's what I love about her too, is that she was one of those agents who like, she made it and now she wants to give back, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about her is because I do think it's harder for agents to like feel like they can mentor or tutor someone because they're so busy. It's kind of mess. And actually, I've heard people say it is like, it does take away from your own business.
It does.
And all she did was just, hey, can I shout at you? And, she sat and listened and learned. Maybe without having to take that specific agent's time every single day. It was like 1 day or 2 days. And I don't know exactly how she did it, but that's what I understand of it at least.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a good idea.
And it's a great idea. I mean, talk to agents. If you have a brick and mortar office like we do, just door knock the agents, right? go up to their office doors and be like, hey, I'm a brand new agent, want to learn a little bit more about like the daily life of a real estate agent. Like can I just come in, sit in your office and not do anything to bother you.
And
Just listen.
if you show that level of like, what's the right word? Drive, you know, if a big initiative, who knows? You might find a mentor just because you impress them, you know?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a good way to do it.
Because it's really about actually putting yourself out there and doing it. And I mean, that's all real estate is. It's the connections, the contacts, the face-to-face that you have. And that's with clients and mentors alike.
Absolutely. I will say too, because like showing, I mean, I think it's important at any job that your peers see you want it, no matter what job it is. Because one, it'll give you respect. But also like speaking with some team leads, it's hard for them to hire because they don't know your worth. Like you can do the DISC profile all day long, but they don't know what your work ethic is. But if you're going door to door, knocking on agents' doors, asking for advice, that's a great way to show that you really care and that you want this. And
eventually you start shadowing those people. And this is something that I'm actually helping somebody go through right now, where he's looking to get into real estate full time. He's got 3 other jobs. And instead of doing that, he wants to focus all of his time on real estate, even if as an admin, as a transaction coordinator, whatever. But focusing on that, he still has something missing, and it's really that experience.
Right.
And so doing that door knocking for mentors and showing that drive, that initiative, that's what's actually going to put him
where he needs to be.
Where he needs to be.
And then I'm not intending on shouting all these people out, but Darius, I should get him on here to talk about the dual career and how to do it. Yeah, I have to talk to him because that is something that I can't imagine having to do that. You know, when I became a loan officer, I just became a loan officer, and that was it, and it was sink or swim. But having to do 2 jobs, I can't imagine being successful. My coworker has a great analogy. She likes to say, like, you put 2 ladders next to each other, you can only climb them both for so long until you fall off one of them. Anyways.
And usually it's about finding a job in the field that you're interested in, right? So like admin, transaction coordinator, or whatever, or just doing something that kind of holds you over, but knowing all of your overtime goes towards real estate, right? And that's what people have a hard time accepting. It will take more work. It will take more time, more effort, more energy. You will have to sacrifice, whether it's with your family or something else. But if that's the big vision, if that's the goal, you have to be willing to sacrifice a little bit of that now. I'm not saying get divorced and be completely actually, disassociated from your family.
My trainer, when I was becoming a loan officer, he said, you need to just tell your wife to pack up for 6 months, and that's what you're gonna have to do for the first 6 months. You're gonna have to live by yourself. I said, my wife went for 6 months. I'm just gonna have to figure it out.
just figure it out.
Sending her away.
So not necessarily don't go that extreme, right?
That's a lot.
But you still you have to make sure they're in the same boat with you, especially if you have a spouse.
You do have to have that conversation.
And that's something that I wish I had known is knowing to have that conversation and how much your friendships, your circle, and specifically your spouse has the effect that they have on your business. Because yes, if I'm working 9 to 5 and I'm working hard, great. But if I don't have the time to invest in myself and my skills and my training, in my growth after hours when I'm not getting paid, then it's not going to work out.
That is it can be a really, really hard pill to swallow for spouses. I mean, I have experience with the spouse side because, you know, especially the beginning when you're not getting paid for it, it's really hard to swallow.
That's the hardest part.
And then with children as well. I mean, there is nothing as a father. It is so hard to, I'm on the phone, there's a couple $1,000s on the line, and my daughter is, you know, asking me to dance with her or something, and that's a really hard, for a father, it's hard to do. So, and I don't want to talk anybody out of real estate, but it is good to know that expectation, so that you can express that to your loved ones, that this is the reality of that job. And there is a fine line. It's about setting, you have to draw boundaries for sure with your clients or with whoever. You have to set boundaries with your family. Like mine is, you know, between 8 o'clock, from 8 to 9, I'm putting my daughter to bed. That's my time with her, and I'm not taking calls. But other than that, I got you.
But 9 to 11:30 p.m., you're on the.
That's it. Yeah,
you're tired.
Oh yeah, John and I will be both sitting in our beds on Zoom working on files at midnight. So, but it is important to set boundaries for sure.
Exactly. Definitely.
All right, so we kind of went on a little tangent there. What else?
Oh, definitely.
What else you got for new agents?
That new agent timeline, right? So.
What step are we on?
The other, we're still on step 2.
Okay.
That's all step 2, right? Packed in there.
Perfect.
And along with that, you also have to consider the day-to-day of an agent, right? So it's not just learning contracts. That's part of it, right? But the other part is the delivery, how you have conversations, how you go on presentations, how you present that information that you have now learned to your clients. And that's all still part of learning your craft. And part of the 5 daily duties of an agent are actually just generating the leads, which we'll get to later, following up those leads. Again, that's step 3. But practicing your craft, going on appointments, and negotiating contracts. And so you have to understand how all of that works. And you understand that in step 2, when you are script practicing with people, you are talking with other people in the field, you're shadowing, you are reading through those contracts, you print out a sample buyer brokerage agreement, you print out a sample buyer presentation, and then you say, okay, this is what I would go over. And one thing that I can't remember where I heard this, but it's a mix of a couple of different things. But basically, a brand new agent with 24 hours of intentional preparation for an appointment could beat out an experienced agent with 30 minutes of preparation. And so it's really just about how much time you put into that prep so you're ready for any question that comes.
What did I say when we were going over this? It's like Batman. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
So I came up with Mamba mentality. That's kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And you said Batman, and I was like,
that's what it is.
But yes, it's all that preparation.
It's preparation.
It's being in the gym, doing the work, the everything that it takes to get to that level. Like Batman didn't become Batman overnight, right?
Exactly.
It was first he was an orphan, right? Parents died.
Yeah, we don't have to go into
that. But there was also preparation. He was what? He was a teen, early teens, super young kid, and it took him 10 years. And granted, he's got resources, Wayne Enterprises, all that kind of stuff. We're getting way too deep into that.
Yeah, okay. The point is, he can beat anybody with enough preparation. And as an agent, same mentality with enough preparation. It doesn't matter if the number 1 agent in the country is against you. If you have enough time to prepare, you could win.
Yeah, because it's really about knowing that prospect.
Yeah,
and more than the process, because every agent will do the exact same thing. Hey, we're going to put your home on the market. Hey, and that might vary slightly, but we're going to put your home on the market. We're going to go under contract. We're going to negotiate. We are going to get to the closing table. We're going to make sure it's a smooth transaction, right? That's everybody's value proposition. They're always saying, oh, my value proposition is that I make sure that you have a smooth transaction from start to finish. And like, honestly, no, you're like, that's your transaction coordinator.
Yeah.
Coordinator, that's their job. That's what they're doing. What are you actually doing? And it's the explanation. It's the
explain your value.
Exactly. And doing all of that. So that's all packed into stage 2. Now, you don't have to necessarily finish stage 2 before going on to stage 3, because stage 3 is finding and serving your clients, right? You typically want to know at least enough to guide someone into those next steps. So you want to be like 2 steps ahead, right? So if I don't understand a buyer brokerage agreement, I'm not going to go out to talk to anybody. But if I understand a buyer brokerage agreement and I understand how to go show houses, then okay, I can start generating leads, and I can do that. And as I'm generating those leads, I am investing in myself and my time and my skills and my abilities, and learning that next step. Okay, how do I negotiate? How do I go into contract? How do I do the rest of that?
I think it is like, I mean, I get it. Trial by fire. You learn best when you're doing it. Absolutely. But you shouldn't be trying to do the next step until you understand the first one. And yes, there is or you should understand the step you're about to go to before you execute it. And you will learn it as you go, of course, but you should have some general understanding, because you're not going to be able to properly serve your clients if you don't at least understand what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's what's really cool about it. It's a spectrum, right? It's not one or the other. It's not only trial by fire or only preparation.
I agree with that.
It's a continuum, and you have to gauge based on your personality, because some people lean more towards the trial by
because some
fire.
people learn differently, right?
But it's not. This is trial by fire. It's how soon are you willing to jump in, and sometimes it takes more preparation depending on your learning style, and sometimes it is something where you just have to cold turkey jump in and figure it out while doing it.
I will say, like, for me, for my own learning with my mentor, there was the hardest thing for me to grasp was how we selected rates. And I remember, because I'm a trial by fire type person, for sure. And he taught it to me maybe 4 or 5 times. And finally I was like, listen, why don't you just watch me and I'll do it. And then you just catch me if I'm doing something wrong. And it made so much more sense to me like that, because that's how I learn. So I think there is something important about knowing how you learn, but then still when you're serving clients, right? This isn't about the paycheck at the end of the day. This is about, we want to find this person their home. And we want to provide the best service possible. And the business will come if you have that mentality, but you can't serve your client if you don't at least have a general idea of what you're going to be doing.
Exactly. And again, this will go into later on where we're talking about experienced agents and training, but it's really about, I think you should have as many mocks, examples and like case studies of like, this is exactly what happened. These are the conversations that were had. I was actually brainstorming on this last night. I was just up later than usual, and I was like, we should do something like this. And it's just like case studies of an actual transaction, right? Where I show you the entire process, whether it's documented on paper or videos or however, you have some form of documentation to show these are the steps taken.
Kind of like a football coach when they go and watch the highlights and the videos so that they can learn from them.
Exactly. And the best players watch game footage.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's better if we watch somebody else's game footage to see,
learn from somebody else's mistakes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
These are the plays that work. Let's run them. Right? And so we're not starting from scratch. Well, I think if we snap the ball this way, you don't want to get caught up in that. Snapping the ball, like it's a shotgun, right? Boom. This works. And now we go for a pass. That works. Right? And we know that it's tried and true, and we start with that. We start with those models. But you basically do want to have that that kind of training, or at least understanding, or some kind of grasp on what comes next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're 100% right. And then, all right, what step were we on? Was that step 3?
Well, yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's step 1, step 2, step 3. And they used to be like 10 steps, and then there were 5 steps, and then ultimately I boiled it down to those 3, because it's like the getting acquainted and then setting up and then right. But ultimately it's boiled down. Those are the 3 steps that you really need to focus on. And once you've gotten that down and you've set everything up, you understand the process, you've done it a couple times, you've gone out with clients and you've helped them close on their homes, whether buying or selling, you're now not fresh, right? You have some kind of understanding.
Yeah, even if you've never actually had a transaction, you're not fresh.
Exactly, yeah. And at that point, it's about getting those clients, right? And once you've gotten those clients, you've helped them close, the next thing is, all right, well, how do I scale this, right? How do I get off of the hamster wheel or not even the hamster wheel, but the roller coaster ride of, ooh, I've got clients, and then they close, and then I have no clients, and then I have to start over again. And a lot of people miss out on the consistency that they need to have when it comes to lead generation.
So with lead generation, that is, and don't get me wrong, sometimes it can get hard when you're busy. Today for me is a good example. I try to lead generate every day, and today it just didn't happen. It can be difficult, but you should be, at least 30 minutes to an hour every single day, dedicate some kind of time to lead generation. Even if you have things under contract, I don't care if you're closing today, you need to have it, because you will. So when I first started as a loan officer, I saw that happen, is that roller coaster of, I got my first couple under contract and now I have nothing. And it's because you stop because you're so focused on getting them closed. But that's where a transaction coordinator can come in handy. And I get it, your first deal, you want to make it.
But even then, like your first deal is not going to take 8 hours of your day, right?
If it takes you 8 hours, you created it. You created that problem, right? But yes, lead generating every single day, at least 30 minutes, at least an hour.
If you have a single client or a single transaction under contract at the moment, you need to be spending 3-4 hours a day.
I believe it. Yeah, I agree.
Once you get busier, sure, you need to start doing it yourself, and you end up taking on more work. But you need to
closings roll into each other. I will see. One closing creates another closing. Like the last agent I can't remember, but I closed with her, and then she called me next day. Hey, that closing we just did? I have another friend who saw that, and now they want to talk to you. And I was like, oh, awesome. So they do roll into each other. Yeah. And it will progressively snowball, like Dave Ramsey talks about with your debt, like a snowball effect. But yeah, I agree. In the beginning, you need to be lead generating is a big thing. I mean, you need to understand your job for sure, but even when you're already doing business, you need to continue lead generating.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of new agents say, okay, yes, lead generate. I know I have to do that for 4 hours a day, but what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like what does that entail? What does lead generating entail? And it ultimately comes down to 4 things. I have so many numbers.
Yeah,
I got this 3-step process, 4-step thing.
You're
but
structured.
Yes, I am, because I've had to teach so many agents
Yeah.
all the exact same thing. So if I wasn't structured, oh my gosh, it would be terrible. But basically, there are 4 ways to reach out to people. And this is actually not my concept. This is something from Alex Hormozi, if you've ever heard of him. Incredible business guru, has done it himself many times over, hundreds of millions of dollars. But ultimately, there are 4 ways to get customers. You talk to people one-on-one. You talk to people one-to-many. It's like a broadcasted message. You reach out to a warm audience, and you reach out to a cold audience. And so that creates more or less a Punnett square of everything that you can do. So you start out with one-to-one warm outreach, right? And so that's your sphere of influence. That is everybody in your phone contacts, your Gmail contacts, your social medias, any person who you have the contact information for, that is a potential lead, right? That's a prospect. And then we can talk more about like what you actually say later on or something.
Yeah.
But that's like the first section. The next one is one-to-many warm. So that's when I'm posting to Facebook groups. I'm posting public posts. I'm posting with hashtags. It's typically very social media based, but it could also be an email list that I have from a previous job or.
Oh yeah, there you go. I think I've heard of a lot of agents who have converted so many of their old coworkers or like people in that company into
exactly.
buyers.
Or if you have another business. So I was working with another agent who she has a handyman business, like hands-on work. They do their own stuff, and she's been in the business for a year, has closed 2 transactions, 1 coming. 2 of those have been from those previous clients from that other business. So it's really just about whoever you know, reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, I'm doing this other thing too in real estate. Don't know if it's for you, but this is what we do.
Can I ask you a sidebar question about that? So you have an agent who, because I run into this all the time. I hear it. I've heard you get asked this before. You have an agent who has like a small business or something on the side that they're very good at. They're on Facebook all over it, or they're all over Facebook with that, and they have a huge following. Then I always hear the agents ask, "How do I make this? Like how do I turn that into real estate?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know exactly what I'm talking about because it's all the time.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How do you do that?
Yeah, and it's really about letting people know, and that's what advertising is. That's what marketing is. It's letting people know about your stuff. And if we have this other thing, they associate us with that thing, right? So for example, I am very active in my church, and I play bass and I sing and do a lot of worship. So that is how they associate me there. So how would I take these people and turn them into clients? How do I take these people and let them know like I'm in leadership or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I let them know about my new thing. It's the one-on-one conversations, the one-to-many, and this is all still within that warm audience, right? Because they all already
they at least know
like,
you
and trust
somehow.
me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And a lot of times I will even talk to them, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you're that guy on stage. You do worship."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." Like, so is that your full-time thing? Well, actually, no. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's honestly applicable for any business.
It is.
Right? If you start a new business, this is what you do.
And that's why I wanted to ask it because I hear that come up so often. The last one was a couple days ago. Someone had a big, they were a part of a bunch of Facebook groups, and that was like their thing.
Yeah.
And the suggestion was, well, you just need to, they just need to know you're an agent. So maybe you could do funny pictures of that, but it's real estate related. And you might have been the one to answer the question. I can't remember. But it is, you just got to make sure they know. But that's why I wanted to ask that because I see it come up all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of, I will put this little side note in here. I don't recommend starting a whole bunch of businesses, right? Because that is just split attention.
It goes back to that what we were talking about with the ladder. You can't. You can only climb up them so far before you start falling off.
Exactly. And so if you're looking to transition into real estate, then you have to understand that eventually you will do this full time, and this is the goal. Or maybe it's not, and maybe it's just a little bit of side income, but you have to have that defined from the beginning, and that's why career visioning is so important. That's why Keller Williams does this super well, where they start with your goals. All right, what have you done? Where are you trying to get to? And establishing that first, right? Once you know that, then you know how hard you have to push to get to where you want to go.
That point, yeah.
But if you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're aiming.
You don't know how to get there if you don't know where you're going.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, that's the first two of the Punnett Square, right? For the lead generating. Mm-hmm. But the next two are for the cold audiences. So it's still one-to-one and one-to-many, but with cold audience. So with one-to-many, you're looking at Facebook ads, Google pay-per-click, anything that broadcasts the message of, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Now, most people do this incorrectly. This is something I did too, where I grabbed a picture of myself, my professional headshot that I got from a friend of mine, and I put my phone number on there, and I put a house behind me, and I ran a Facebook ad saying, hey, if you need to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, let me know.
How'd that go?
I got zero. It doesn't work because there's you have to.
And you pay money for those, right? I've never done a Facebook. You pay money for that.
Yeah, with Facebook ads and with any ads that you run, you're basically paying for the views, right? Where we kind of mentioned like growing on social media before we started recording, but when you pay for it, you're paying for the eyeballs. The eyeballs come whether it's good or not. But if it's not good, they don't stay. They don't pay you. They don't reach out to you.
Well, because you have to catch them, right? So I mean, you can pay for the ad and go to all these people, but if your post is not eye-catching, they don't care. They don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another real estate agent posting another thing about real estate agent, how they can sell my house that I'm not selling, right?
Exactly. And so, what's crazy is I was listening to this other podcast of a guy. He's a real estate investor, but he was at an event talking with one of Alex Hormozi's biggest marketing guys, social media guys, and he said, I looked at real estate agents as what not to do when it comes to marketing because they all do the exact same thing.
They do the same thing.
Right? It's everybody's walking through and it's like, oh, look at this open house.
I think it's important, like, don't reinvent the wheel, but you do need to make yourself stand out, right? And I think that comes with perfecting it, perfecting your craft and being clever about it, but still not reinventing the wheel. That's the thing that's always been said, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, there's stuff that works, you just have to do them right.
For sure. And but that's the thing. You can take a wheel that has been invented somewhere else, right? I don't have to copy real estate agents.
Oh yeah.
What if I copy a marketer's strategy for getting people to opt into their email list and I apply that to real estate? What if I take what I've learned in a plumbing business and apply that to real estate with how personable I am, how I portray my services and all that kind of stuff? Because it's taking something that works somewhere else and applying
and
it
just
here.
Taking the format.
Because a lot of it are sound business principles, and now some might not be, and you might have learned the wrong
but
lesson.
It's proven. Well, like Ty Anderson's class when he shows the commercial that what was the commercial?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking
Peloton.
about? Yeah, the Peloton commercial that I guess, and it's so funny because he's like, this blew up, and I had no idea, and then Ryan Reynolds had just taken it and made it work in a funny way or whatever. But it's like that, you take something that works and just make it yours,
Exactly.
Nobody's saying nothing to you, so.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't start with anything cold. Start with people Start with that warm audience, and then later on, once you have more experience, then you can venture out into the cold audiences. But the other thing is just one-to-one cold, and so that's cold calling, circle prospecting, expired listings, for sale by owners, internet leads that somebody else has paid for. Doing all of those, and that's really good for script practice and understanding what you're saying. But
I feel like that would help with confidence too. So I'm a huge cold call. I love cold calling. And as you progress with your cold calls, whether it's expired or FSBOs or just cold calls or whatever, however you're doing it, you will be rejected 100%.
Oh yeah,
I get rejected every time I pick up the phone and start dialing, right? And that will build confidence. You'll slowly become not necessarily numb to that, numb to it, right? You just move on. You just move on to the next one. But it'll improve. So another thing that I do, and I've told you I do this. So when I first started cold calling, I had a script that was given to me by my mentor, and he said, "This is what you need to do." And I practiced it with him several times, role playing. I practiced with other loan officers who were also new, role played, and then I started making my calls. The then the first couple I fumbled through them, and then progressively I got better and better and better to where they were working. But then I would hit these spots where like it's like these calls are not working. Like the script is no longer working basically. And I'd be like, okay, it would literally be like I'd be in the mid, like halfway through my calls, and be like, you know what, I'm not doing this. I would take the script, I would look at it, I'd rewrite it. Sometimes I'd show somebody, say, hey, what do you think about this? Rewrite it, and then I'd go again, and then I'd do great. And then a couple months later, that script is no longer working, and I'd do it again. And just like I like to talk about cold calling because I love cold calling, but that really helped me. Is every time a script stops working, no problem, new script. And then you keep it on. And maybe it's because you start to sound dry, or you start to sound like a robot or whatever. You keep it fresh.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about if you run that same script with like 3 other loan officers, or in our case, like with 5 other agents, and okay, everybody, let's all do this collectively. Like find a group of new agents. Like we kind of do like little cohorts with our agents as they come in. Yeah. And so you get together with those people. Hey, we're all gonna go
link up with
these, or like let's split this lead generation, or like pay for these leads. Let's split it 5 ways, and we'll all get access to those leads, and we'll practice it. We'll use the exact same script, and then if it's working for one person, that means it can work for everybody. If it's not working for any of us, then we can do it. But if you have script adherence first, then you have to tweak something.
So we did the loan officer and I, we came up together. We would do that. We would call each other when we got off work, and I'd say, hey, this is working now, or she'd say, hey, this is working now, and that's what we would do, and we would learn off each other. And I will tell you too, from the real estate side, or the agent side, the agents that I see that are most likely to succeed are ones that are like packed up. Like they'll all go through Ignite together or whatever, and then 3 or 4 of them will become friends. And then I've walked into a room before to meet with an agent, and there's 4 of them in there, and they're all from Ignite together, and they're all script practicing. Like link up with people, hone your craft together, because you can feed off each other and learn from each other.
Yeah, and that's really where it's about like energy management, right? Where if you do cold calls alone, it sucks. But if I'm in a group of 5 other people running the exact same script, calling slightly different leads, like because based on how we split them, it's so much more exciting.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It is more nerve-wracking too, because it's like, oh, they're gonna hear me mess up. They're gonna like, what are they gonna say? But
we did something like that where we all got in the same room. There was like 20 of us, and we just made calls, and it's fun. It's honestly becomes fun.
It is. And you can even have it to where, let's ring a bell every time we
every time we did that. Actually, we had every time. It was when we came up with Max Cap, and every time we got somebody signed up, we'd go and ring that bell. And it is fun. It's like Wolf of Wall Street. That scene. It's a lot of fun. So
it is.
Do it.
Definitely. Yeah, and I mean that all of that stuff is what lead generating is, right? It's talking to people either who know you or don't know you, letting them know about your stuff. That's what lead generating is. And then following up with those leads, kind of what we talked about with those 5 daily duties, following up is super important.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to talk about, the 8x8. So I had an agent who came to me, and because he talked about, you're talking about following up with leads. So I had an agent who came to me who did phenomenal in 2020 and 2021, like during COVID, and she gets a ton of leads, like just a ton of leads. I can't remember exactly how she's getting them, but she gets so many of them. And she came to me and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like I'm getting all of these leads and nothing is coming to fruition. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing with those leads? And she said, well, usually they're just not ready to buy. And I said, well, are you contacting them after that? No. Well, that's your problem. And I built her an 8x8 and sent it to her, which you know about because I've told you the story. And lo and behold,
what is an 8x8?
An 8x8, yeah, there you go. So I guess not everybody knows an 8x8. So an 8x8 is I'd say a strategic plan to continue to touch somebody for 8 weeks. And when I say touch somebody, I mean like you're contacting them in some way. So let's say if I was a real estate agent and I met Jimmy on the street, and Jimmy was like, oh, you're an agent? And we really hit it off, and we exchanged numbers. Great, now I got your phone number. So I would wait a week, and how mine would go is I would follow him on Facebook the second week. We met, now we're friends on Facebook, and then the third one, I'm going to send them something of value, usually I do a video message, I'll send them, hey, Jimmy, this is Chase. And then just some kind of value, something to add to that. And, I have a different perspective because I'm doing it differently, which we've talked about it.
Yeah. You're aiming at agents, not as an agent towards clients.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to know exactly what you should do. But the point is it's 8 weeks of touches. And then at the end of that 8 weeks, hopefully something, you want to try to get them to go out to lunch with you or get coffee or whatever, just to talk a little bit more in depth. If they're a real serious buyer, you want to get them to sign a BBA. And then if nothing comes to fruition in 8 weeks, that's okay. You got a new friend. Congratulations. And so then you want to put them on a 36 touch, which will be 36 touches in a year, just to keep top of mind so that when they are ready to buy, they think of you.
Exactly. And that's one thing that I love telling people is that with an 8x8, you shortcut a relationship with somebody, a friendship with somebody, because you have a lot of people think it's just, oh, I've known this person for so long, but it's actually not the amount of time that you've known somebody. It's the amount of intentional outreaches that I've made to them. It's the amount of intentional time we've spent together.
People want to know that they're cared about,
Exactly.
Like to me, that's what it is. Like, I don't ever call, and again, I'm calling agents, right? I am never calling an agent and saying, hey, why don't you send me a deal? No, I'm calling them because, and one, I genuinely do care. And I think if you genuinely care,
which real quick, that's what a lot of agents do. Hey, and instead of, hey, do you want to work with me? It's like, hey, do you want to buy, sell, invest in real estate? And that's all people say.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't work.
No, you have to, you provide value, right? Like I always, and again, I'm going to I've talked to agents, but I always call them with some piece of value, something that I think can help them. Like calling somebody and explaining an 8x8 would be a great touch for me.
Or even like if we're looking at it from the agent side, it's what are they struggling with that's outside of real estate? How can I be their go-to person to connect them with? It's
important to listen
solution.
when you have these conversations too, because those touches will be easier because you'll know who you're talking to.
You can reference back to other conversations that you've had in the past.
Exactly. Yeah. So what can I ask you then? Like, so for you being an agent, what would be some touches you would make on an 8x8?
Yeah, for sure. So let's say we meet Jimmy out on the street or like at the grocery store. I would the first touch is technically just a text to them when I've gotten his phone number saying, hey, Jimmy, super great meeting you at Walmart, and usually when I meet people, I'm trying to get their contact information, not to talk about real estate, but for some other reason. So let's give the full scenario, right? I don't just go to people and say, hey, what's your phone number, right? That makes no sense. But let's say Jimmy and I are in line and he's buying some protein powder. I would say, oh, that's pretty cool. Have you used that protein powder before? Is that your go-to? I'd be like, oh, well, I'm trying it out for the first time, yada, yada, yada. Okay, because I like going to the gym. So
gym is a good one. I know, I talk to people all the time. I wear my Supreme Lending shirt every time I go to the gym.
Yeah, hey, marketing, right?
Yeah.
But then I have that conversation with him. It's like, well, dude, I'd love to have your phone number and maybe follow up and see how that works for you, if it tastes good, if it works for you, whatever, right? And be like, yeah, sure, man, whatever. Gives me his number. Great, I have his number. Now what I'll do is immediately text him to lock him in. Just like, hey, Jimmy, just wanted to shoot you a quick text so you could lock my number in too. And I'll look over my shoulder at his to make sure, okay, he did get it. He didn't give me a false number, right?
Yeah.
That's because that can be part of it too. But honestly, if you're being friendly enough, if you're connecting with something, you're not trying to sell them something.
You definitely don't want to be looked at as this guy's trying to sell me something.
Yeah, because you don't want to come off as the used car salesman.
Yeah.
Right. Where it's like, man, I could sell ice to an Eskimo, right? I can sell me this pen. Right?
Sell me this pen. I was about to say the same thing. Sell me this pen.
I can sell you anything, but that's not really the case. No. That's not what we want to.
That's not what we do.
Yeah, and with real estate, it's relationship based, right? And again, it's a spectrum. There's the numbers side of it, and there is the relationship side of it. But with real estate, you have to lean more towards the relationship because when you're starting, yes, it is absolutely a numbers game. You have to reach out to enough people. But if I don't build relationships with each of those people, then it's for naught.
Right? Remember I told you the other day, I was like, I learned this when I was cold calling, is that, so I used to be so fixated on, I made 80 calls today and yesterday I only made 70. Like, that's what I cared about. And then like a couple months in, I was like, who cares if I made 10 calls? If those 10 calls were great conversations compared to my 80 calls where they didn't answer, those 10 calls are worth more. So it's more about
the quality, not the quantity.
The quality, not the quantity. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now you do need to hit the numbers.
Ideally, if you had quality quantity,
then you're winning. Yes.
And how do you do that? You grow your sphere of influence. You have people calling you. You have. I mean, with Terry from our office, right? She has, I've had a chance to look at her CRM. She has over 20,000 people in that database.
Holy
Over 20,000. It stops counting at 20,000. It says 20,000, 20K plus.
Wow.
So there's a lot more, but there are at least 20,000 people in her database
that she is
somehow connected with, and she keeps up with all of them. Granted, it's not a text every single day, right? But she has them on smart plans or automations to stay top of mind with them. But she has some kind of connection with them. And that's what makes it so easy, because people call you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but 1, 2, 3 years down the line. If you're looking to build something big, that's good. And they're calling her saying, hey, thanks so much for staying in touch. You're like, dude, I haven't talked to you in 3 years. But I sent them an automated email that goes out every month about their specific area. And they say, I'm finally ready to move based on what you've been sending me for these past 3 years.
That's
and you're like,
awesome.
Yeah, that was totally intentional,
that's
right?
And can I give here's a little tech tip, ready? Because that's a little tech tip. So on your phone, or an iPhone at least, you can put notes in there. And I try to, and I'm not perfect at it, but I try to put some notes, at least say like where it came from, so that if they call you, because eventually there's so many people calling you that you don't even know. And I'm bad about, if I talked to you last week, I might have talked to, 300 or 400 people between now and then. I will forget, especially if you only had one conversation. So especially when you start, maybe this is a higher level tip, when you start getting to that point where you're talking to dozens of people every single day, taking notes in your phone, because it is super simple. I can be on the phone. If I'm not sure, I will put it on speaker, I carry on my conversation, hit the little tab on my phone, and they'll read those notes real quick so I can get a quick, I don't know. I just lost
a reminder.
A reminder of who I'm talking to.
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's this person.
Yes.
Right, and that's where a CRM comes into play.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because if you don't have a CRM app, by all means, yes, do it on your phone, because that's the easiest thing. If I have a spreadsheet or a notebook, I have to. Right,
yeah,
and it's like
that's all the old timers.
Right, all the old timers learn CRM. Right,
they have notebooks on notebooks on notebooks on notebooks. I'm like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. But no, so you want to have it on your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android.
You need to be able to access that information quickly.
Yeah, at the swipe of a finger, right?
I agree.
That's you need to have it.
There's your tech tip. We haven't really talked about tech tips, but you need to access information quickly. That's what you need to do.
Exactly.
Set it up in a way that you can access info quickly.
And that's where CRMs come into play, because we as humans don't have the capacity to have meaningful relationships with more than, I think it's 100 people, 150 people.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And
I believe it though.
Yeah, like with some kind of connection with.
Yeah, with so like an
usually like
deep,
a close,
like a deep connection, like you would, like your friends, like your real friends,
Exactly. And so how do we grow to over 20K in our database, right? And it's really about having those systems in place to remind you of who a person is, because I might be talking to Jimmy, and it's like, oh, Jimmy, who's this Jimmy? Instead of racking my brain trying to remember who that is.
I met him at Walmart. He was buying protein.
Exactly. And so having that in the CRM where it tracks every single conversation, and okay, the first time we talked about Walmart and protein. The next time we talked about where he went to the gym. The next time we talked about his creatine, and then the next time I mentioned real estate for the first time.
Yeah.
So you can keep track of that, and it's better to have that as soon as possible, so that way
I said this is for this would be some way to take you to the higher level, but honestly, you should be doing this from the jump.
If possible, if your broker provides you a CRM, absolutely use it. And there are some people who are like, well, I don't want to use their CRM because then what if I leave or something? Honestly, just talk to them. Say, hey, give me a CSV file of all my contacts.
Oh yeah, you can get all you
don't even have to. That can be before you're leaving, and then it's like, oh, okay, sure, because sometimes I want to put them in a different CRM, or I want to do something else with them, and I need the CSV file, and they'll be super understanding of it, and then you can dip out of there, right? Or we at Keller Williams, we're very good about wanting people to have control of their business and of their contacts and of their sphere. And so if you come to us before we release your license, we'll tell you, get your contacts, do all of this first, so that way you're not coming to us 3 weeks later, 3 months later, like, hey, you also have my contacts. Like, no, we delete all of that.
Yeah.
So we don't want to hold on.
It's not even personal. It's just.
It's not. It's not personal. We do that with everybody. We delete everybody.
Yeah.
So just utilizing that CRM from the beginning, if you can learn that from the beginning as part of your setup, as part of your learning the craft, then it's going to set you up for success.
I definitely think you should learn on a CRM. So like I got a CRM because I hit a point where I was like, I can't manage this, like I need something. And I got the CRM and I had to transcribe everything over to the CRM, and it's such a pain. So definitely start from the jump, and yes, it's going to be a learning curve, and find somebody that can help you with it. For the people in our market center, obviously you, but find somebody to help you learn it, because once you learn it, it's going to change the game. And at least you don't have to go learn it where you've hit a wall and you're like, man, I could really use a CRM now, and now you got to go back to everything.
You're going to be spending a week at least trying to clean that up.
Yeah.
And I'm working with some agents right now who they have, I think it was 800 people in their contacts and 400 people in their contacts, and they are now putting them into Command, our CRM system, and they have to go through every single one, all the notes that they have in their spreadsheet, in their notebooks. It is so much work, and they have to.
Oh, I cannot imagine.
I was going 5 weeks that we put a plan together for the next 5 weeks, doing nothing else but reaching out to those people. Obviously, if business comes, you have to, when you're doing that, when you're transferring people over, you have to kind of audit it, so that way you're not just doing it one by one and not really advancing your business. You want to instead incorporate some type of lead generation, or at least nurturing of people who already know you while you're doing that transfer.
I cannot imagine going from paper to a CRM, like years of paper to a CRM. I went from I was doing everything on Outlook. So all I had to do was, and it was a pain, but I downloaded everything and then had it uploaded. But
paper, you do that one by one.
5 weeks at least.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
At least, yeah, no, that's more than 5. That's 5 months.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for new agents before we start talking about experienced agents?
I mean, just kind of that intermediate zone, honestly. Like you've already had a couple of deals and you're looking to grow. Number one, use that CRM from the beginning.
Yep.
And it's going to be so much easier for you in the long run. The second thing would be just to focus on, this is another Alex Ramosi thing, more, better, new, right? Do more of what you're currently doing, because it's working. Something's working. You've closed deals.
Right.
So why change it up? If I'm working my sphere of influence and they say, I've just tapped it out. Okay, so you have closed with everybody in the past year. It's typically for every 100 people, you will get 2 transactions / referrals, right? So have I tapped out on that? If I have 200 people in my database, have I had 4 transactions from it? If I know 500 people, have I had 10 transactions from that, right? And if I haven't, all right, I got to do more. What does more look like? More looks like more conversations, more outreach, more coffee outings, more dinners, more breakfast, more lunch.
I will say too, don't discount the in-person. So you can do everything on the phone and that's great, but sitting down in person, you do build a deeper level of a connection there.
Yeah.
That I feel they're more likely to contact you because you've had, you're not just somebody who they talked to on the phone 6 times. I would almost say that 6 phone conversations is not worth the same as 1 in-person 30-minute conversation.
I would agree.
Build that relationship.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that a super huge top agent from New York, he says, is that people hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have to talk with them. You have to build that relationship, that friendship. And once you have that, that's when you can talk to people about real estate, because they know you. Right? Because
they already trust you. You're not just a guy. You're not just another agent trying to get you to sell the house you don't want to sell.
It's not. You don't have that commission breath.
Yes, the commission breath. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of that too is we've talked about this before. Pixar, the movie Soul.
Oh yeah. I love when he brings this up in class, because it's like, has anybody seen the movie Soul? And my hand's the only hand to go up.
That goes up. Yeah, it's so funny because. Actually, I spoke with one agent yesterday who actually has seen it. Yes. So it's 2 people now that I've talked to. It's a really good movie. But basically, what part of that movie is this guy, his whole life is jazz, and even when he's out doing other things, all he thinks about, all he talks about is jazz. And so he goes to a barbershop, he gets his hair cut, and then he leaves. And that's their entire thing. It's just like, hey, how's it going? Oh, jazz is doing great, right?
Yeah.
And then he leaves.
His old personality.
His old personality. And then the new personality, if you've seen the movie, you know.
Yep.
But his new personality, he starts talking about something else that isn't jazz. And the barber's like, are you good? Like, are you the same person?
Yeah.
Because all you ever want to talk about is jazz. I thought you were the most boring person in the world. And now there's substance to you, because it's not just real estate, or not just jazz. But we take that and let's apply it to real estate. If I only talk about real estate with every single person I know, they're going to get tired of me. They're going to block me on my phone number, my emails, my social medias, because I'm just a walking billboard for, hey, come work with me, right? And that's not as small business owners, because that's what all realtors are. We're small business owners, unless you're making like 100 million income, like take-home income, you're a small business.
You're a small business.
And we try to compete with people like Coca-Cola and other massive brands who have millions that they can put into their marketing budgets to be the billboards. But we have to take what the advantages that we have, and those advantages are the personal connections that we have. And so being of substance and being an actual human with the people that you know is super important. And that's where Ty Anderson from Supreme.
I was literally about to talk about that.
Yeah, he talks about the 4 pillars.
4 pillars.
And it's
that's
kind
hard.
of content, but it's really a brand.
Yeah.
4 pillars of brand. And brand is basically just an association that someone has with you, right? And so how do we take that? How do we take those 4 pillars? What does that mean? And so the 4 pillars are just the 4 different facets that make up everyone's associations with you, right? So in my case, it would be real estate, it would be my family and my fiance, it would be sports, and it would be church, right? And so those are my 4 things. And everybody that I know knows me because of one of those 4 things. And when they talk to me, or they come onto my social media pages, they will find all those 4 facets of my life. And so if I have a post about real estate and somebody from the church world is coming, oh, I didn't know you did real estate. You know, I actually got this one friend, or we're about to sell our house, or all this kind of stuff. And so they start making those associations.
Right.
And that's, again, part of what we were talking about before, where we were saying you have to, if you're coming from one business into another, from one job, one world into this one of real estate, that's how you do it. You have to build those associations by having a multifaceted personality.
Yeah, that's really that is something, because we've talked about that a couple times, and of course I've sat through Ty's class tons of times. But and every time he brings it up, I'm like, man, I'm so bad at that. And it's because I'm personally not a social media person. Before real estate, I really wasn't posting very often. Trust me, my wife reminds me every day I'm not posting enough. And she kind of
Your wife's a real estate agent, right?
Yeah, my wife is an agent, but she's big on social media anyways, and she carries the weight of my my social media, because I'm very bad about just posting real estate agents, because I'm like, ooh, this is good, like I'm gonna post it. But thankfully she tags me and stuff, so like that goes onto my page.
And what I love now is, like with Instagram, you can have like a joint post. So like my fiance, she'll post about our engagement, and then it's posted on my page too. And so I'm like, yes, I am active on social media.
Yes, I'm active. Yeah, that's exactly. I have the same thing. My wife, she's so great at it. She's always posting my daughter, and I'm just not a social media person. That's not, it's just never been my thing. And I'll scroll, but I'm not even really a doom scroller. Like, it's just not my thing. And with real estate, it is important. Like, people need to know what you do and what you offer. So I started doing it, and sitting through Ty, I was like, oh man, I'm doing this all wrong.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very important, because you don't just like the key takeaway, go watch Soul, right? But you don't want to be just that. You don't want to be just that, because nobody wants to work with something that's all they can talk about is, oh, you're a real estate agent, and that's all you do. That's all you are. When you put your head on your pillow at night, you're a real estate agent. That's it.
Yeah,
it's not.
People get tired of that.
Yes.
And that's honestly how this can kind of transition to the more experienced agents now. But that's how the big agents get so big, is because of their sphere of influence, because they are more than just their real estate.
Yes.
Right. And real estate is a huge part of their personality, but it's not all of it. So Terry, she plays tennis. And she is known for tennis, and she kills it. I mean, she's an amazing tennis player, period. I think she injured her elbow or something. So she played recently.
It was her arm. We talked about it.
Yeah. So but people know her for something besides real estate, and she just happens to be a real estate agent, right? I am a real estate agent and this and real estate. And a lot of people focus on like, oh, you got to call the expireds, you got to call the for sale by owners, you got to post ads and get leads and all this kind of stuff. one of some of the biggest agents in our office have done nothing else but talk to their sphere of influence, be present in their lives.
I think Twee's that way, right? Didn't she say she built her business
that way.
on her
built her business on her sphere of influence. Peggy built her business on her sphere of influence, and she is one of our top 10%, like best 25 agents in our office.
You 100% can build just on your sphere of influence. Like I think I heard Twee say one time, she's like, yeah, my networking events are going out with my girlfriends and going to eat. And it's like, that is awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's honestly how you want to build your business. And that's where I've been doing this with so many agents recently, but it's like, how can we utilize Facebook groups, or just how can I target people who are like me to make my lead generation a lot more fun? Because if I'm talking with people who are similar to me, it's going to be so much easier to have the real estate conversations, but also to
talk about things you guys both enjoy.
Exactly. And we have other commonalities. So I'm not just, hey, following up, are you still looking to sell in 6 months? No, I'm talking, hey, how are your kids? How's the wife? How's school going for how's daycare going, right? Whatever it is, how's the gym going? You still lifting heavy? Are you still powerlifting?
Yeah.
I know you injured your shoulder, whatever the case is, right? We have something.
He's talking about me. I injured my shoulder.
Yes, he injured his shoulder.
It's better now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Good.
Yeah.
See, but you have to.
But yes,
to
that's what it
be
is. It's a
interested.
commonality.
It's that commonality. And one huge takeaway, and I was super blessed to have had a dad who pushed personal development on me from such a young age, where
it shows. It shows. Like especially for you being one of the younger people in the office, you're a better speaker,
Thank you.
You are very well-rounded, especially for being one of the younger people in the office, which is part of why I wanted to bring you on and do this, because you are a great person for people to hear from.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just from the books that he's had me read and everything that he's pushed onto me, right? I say pushed on. I kind of accept.
Yeah,
it
you
at
accept.
one point.
Yeah, at first it's a push, then it's like, okay.
Exactly. I mean, I think he started maybe 6th grade, like in early middle school. He was like, oh, you should read this book. You should read Richest Man in Babylon. You should read Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. All these personal development, self-help books, finance. And I was always like, no, so boring. I would fall asleep reading 2 sentences from that book. And sometimes I genuinely did. I tried reading it, and then I didn't like it.
Rich. That's,
Yeah. And The Science of Getting Rich, I think, was the one that I tried starting with. But it finally came together for me in high school when a teacher of mine showed me a video from Jim Rohn. And he was talking about value. You gotta provide your value. You gotta bring value to the marketplace, and that's how he talks. I love all of his videos, but he was talking about values. You gotta bring your values, and I love all of his videos. But a lot of I didn't understand that those two worlds collided.
Yeah.
Right, because my dad was one thing, and then this guy was another thing, and completely separate. They never talked to each other, but they were both talking about the same guy.
The same idea.
And I was like, what? I need to learn more, because if it's true in 2 places, it has to mean something. Mm-hmm. And
really, it's true everywhere.
Yeah, it really is.
Everywhere. You're going to be more successful in your life no matter what you're doing with this concept.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started finally reading that a little bit more. I looked into it a little bit more, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, all the old guys, all the new guys, any kind of speaker or guru that I could get my hands on, whether it's their book or watching them on YouTube, listening to audiobooks, podcasts, whatever I could get my hands on, I would listen to that and find that there was so much.
You can't win.
There was so much. There was so much that I needed to take in from that,
Yeah.
And one of this is what I was getting at. One of those was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And biggest takeaway from that book is just care more about other people, how they're feeling, what they're saying. Be interested, not interesting. Can I take this real quick? Can we pause?
Yeah, let's pause. You're
You guys have crushed all my batteries. You have about 3 minutes left.
Oh, shit.
Oh, okay.
I've actually shifted. You killed 1 set. Now you're about to kill the second.
Dang, dude.
Okay,
Where did we go?
we'll
all right. Well, where were we just now?
Well, yeah, I feel like we could honestly make it as a 2-parter.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do. All right. Well, we're out of time, so we'll do a part 2.
Yeah, we're out of time, so we'll do a part 2.
All right. Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Sorry about that, Kyle.